Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us. Can I just see a few waves of hands if you can hear me okay? Fabulous. We've got voice. That's good. That is a really good start to something like this, isn't it? Great. And we've got some hands up. So thank you for joining us. I have absolutely no doubt that this will be the best use of your lunch break in a long time. So my name is Kaylee Ingham. I'm the chair of the Women in Bus and Coach Northern Region. This is the next in our series of Women in Bus and Coaches food and thought sessions. So we hold these virtual meetings over lunchtime. And we like to run them over the course of the year. So if you are interested in attending more, just make sure that you sign up to our newsletter. We want to provide access to all members irrespective of geography. And so we do these in a virtual way, but we do also host face-to-face meetings. So again, that information will be on the newsletter. So International Women's Day generates a lot of opportunity for conversation about how women can better be supported or support one another. And you will likely have seen that the theme of this year's International Women's Day is Give to Gain. So this is about recognising that every act of support and shared experience, every moment of encouragement helps build not just individual success, but collective progress. And that is entirely aligned with what we stand for here at Women in Bus and Coach. So we like to create spaces where women can learn from one another. We'd like to champion one another and to increase visibility across frontline office and leadership roles. So all of this is with the aim of attracting more females to the sector and retaining those that are with us already. So in the spirit of Give to Gain, our gift to you all for International Women's Day is an opportunity to strengthen your professional identity and to ensure that you have the tools to step forward and be seen. So to help us with that, we're delighted to be joined by Deborah Ogden. Deborah is a leading expert in personal branding, and she'll guide us through how to understand, articulate and elevate our professional presence. So after Deborah's session, we'll open up the floor for Q&A and reflect then on how we can pass our learning forward. So I'd really like that to be an action that you take from today. So that aligns perfectly then with the Give to Gain, so the spirit of sharing onward what we've gained today to uplift others, maybe in our teams or in our peer group. So 3 important asks just before we get started. There's a lot of people on this call, so please do keep yourselves on mute unless Deborah opens up the floor to take questions. Pop questions or observations into the chat as we navigate today, and this will ensure that we can get through as many questions within the question and answer session at the end as possible. And lastly, one ask from me in particular is that we keep this audience growing as these sessions progress. So the power of Women in Bus and Coach is in connecting people, and it's fantastic to see over 50 people on the call with us today. So to keep growing our user base, I'd appreciate it if I could take a little snap of us all on camera enjoying this session. So if you are willing to partake, just before we get started with Deborah, if you could keep your camera on, Anna's going to stop sharing the slide and I'll take a screen grab of that once I've counted us in. So if you prefer not to be within that screen grab that I'll share on LinkedIn, please just temporarily turn your camera off and pop it back on afterwards, because we'd love to have you engaged in the session throughout. So if we can just do that now, I will get that done quickly and then I'll hand over to Deborah. So just bear with me while I adapt my computer to have you all join as well. I think my computer doesn't quite know what to do with the amount of people. Thank you for that. I've really enjoyed that. Okay, I'm going to count us in. So if you would like to smile for this photograph. 1 second, it's still going. There's still lots and lots of people. I think we've got maybe Orla joined with Laura Hadzik as well, who heads up Women in Bus and Coach. Welcome to Orla, our youngest member of Women in Bus and Coach. Okay, I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1, and then I'll take the snap. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so without further ado, I'd love to welcome Deborah to take the floor. Deborah will be speaking for about 45 minutes and then we'll move to a Q&A. Over to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Kaylee. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'd like this to be interactive, but because there are so many on the call, I am going to use the chat. So I am going to ask you to use the chat box. So just while I'm about to share my slides with you, I have a question for you. So we are celebrating International Women's Day. So I would like you to put in the chat box a woman who has inspired you and tell us why. Just in a couple of words, why does this woman inspire inspire you. So while I'm just sharing my slides, if you could pop that and share it in the chat box for me, please. Let's see, let's hear about some inspirational women. I think there are some on the call as well. So somebody's grandma. I haven't got my glasses on. It'd help if I put my glasses on, wouldn't it? So Shanice, an incredibly resilient grandma. Another Lucy, resilience and selflessness. Who else have we got? Brilliant, a former boss here. Oprah Winfrey, yeah. Some great answers here. I'm going to enjoy looking through these later. My first teacher encouraging to read and dream. I was a governor at our local infant school not long ago, and they used to have a phrase, dare to dream. And I can remember one of the teachers saying to me, we're allowed to dare to dream as well. And I thought, what a wonderful, wonderful ethos. So some brilliant ideas coming through here. Can I just say, raise your hands if you can see my slides. Can you see the slides? Yeah, perfect. Brilliant. Okay. So why have I asked you that? Yes, of course, we are celebrating International Women's Day, but would those women that we are talking about, would they realize that what you are sharing here is part of their personal brand? That is their reputation. That is what you think of when their name comes to mind. And one of the challenges that I have, and it was said to me only yesterday, is, Deborah, I feel really sorry for you because personal branding has been hijacked and it's seen as, you know, social content on LinkedIn. It's seen as an area for influencers. It's seen as filters and fake it till you make it. And I want to tell you today that yes, there is some of that, but there is a whole lot more to it today. And I don't know if any of you noticed, I popped on the LinkedIn post that I think Laura had shared. If you weren't sure about personal branding, I hope you've still come along, because I want to give you a different perspective on this. Because actually, in a nutshell, your personal brand is what somebody says about you when you're not in the room. And the other huge learning for me was that the biggest decisions about our career are made when we're not in the room. So just think about that for a moment. And if the decision, if you're not in that room and there is a vacuum, what is going to fill that vacuum? So what message will people be saying about you when you're not in that room? You just think about it. If you are being promoted, if you are being called onto a project, if you're being dropped from a project, if you are looking for funding, whatever it may be, the chances are some of those decisions will be made and people will have an opinion about you. So what will people say? Now, another question for you. We've just had all those wonderful examples of fabulous women. If I was on another call, would anybody put your name down? And if you are a leader within the organisation, who would call your name out as somebody that had inspired you? Because of course that is all down to us, how we show up, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. So it's all encompassing, it's simple, but it's not easy because it needs a huge amount of self-awareness, consistency, and some discipline to show up and be strategic about it. Okay, now some of you, just a show of hands, show or a little yes or a Y in the chat box, is who feels like this when it comes to being visible and visibility and blowing their own trumpet. I think many of us feel like this, don't we? Yeah, and Thank you, Jim. It's good to see male allies on the call as well. So, yeah, many people feel like this when it comes to visibility and articulating their strengths, talking about what they're good at. If I asked you all what you weren't good at, you could probably fill the chat box up for me. But if I ask you what you're really good at, then people are more reluctant. People feel icky about personal branding. They don't want to be seen as the one that's, all style and no substance. But what I want you to think about, certainly in the context of what we're talking about today, and women's International Women's Day and gender equality, if you are a woman in this field, as you are, surely you have a duty to show up, because there's that wonderful phrase, isn't there? If we can't see it, we can't be it. So as role models to other people inside and outside the industry, it is a duty on us as people in the service industry to show up and serve our audience and inspire other people. Okay. And I wanted to share a story actually. I was telling mum, I always ring my mum in the morning, and she said, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, I'm talking at lunchtime for International Women's Day for women in bus and coach." And she said, "Oh," and she's still, nearly 20 years in that I've had the business. She's still not quite got her head around personal branding. And she said, "I think I understand about personal branding now, Deborah." She said, "It's a bit like Malcolm, isn't it, that used to drive the coach on our holidays." So I said, "Well, tell me about Malcolm, Mum." And she said, "Well," she said, "we were given the option of other coach drivers as well, but we always wanted Malcolm. And when the ladies signed up, Malcolm was the first person they asked about to ensure that he would be looking after us on our trip. And therefore, Malcolm's personal brand is out there across Anglesey and North Wales as somebody who has certainly made an impact. And that's personal branding in action. So I just want you to think about how you show up. And I asked you, what 3 words would you think people would say about you? So what are the 3 words that are your personal brand? And I just want you to think about those and keep those in mind as we are going through. Okay, so just a little bit of research for you, because now this has been around for many, many years. This is called Harvey Coleman's pie model. And as you can see, he was measuring factors that affect career success. Now, this has been around many years, and I would say it's probably even more pertinent today than it was when it was created. And he calls this his pie model, and you can see why. He's measuring performance, image. Now, I would call image here your personal brand, because image, if you are an age like me, it brings visions of Trini and Susanna or Gok. Those of you that know will know. But image is so much more than that. It's your personal brand, that reactive how people experience you. And then the third piece of the jigsaw is your exposure. So that is your visibility, that how you are seen. So that proactive, how you lift your profile. Now then, who's surprised? Only 10% of your career success is down to performance. That was the finding of Harvey Coleman's research. Now, forget the figures for a moment, but just look at that breakdown. 10% is down to performance. Now, this is not saying performance does not matter. Performance is a given. That's what it's saying. And I would say, and I'm confident that this is going to continue more and more in the world of AI, that performance is a given and AI can replicate so much, but how you show up is how people experience you, and that is what differentiates you from AI, from other people. And if people, you might be the world's best kept secret. Some of you may feel like that sometimes. You know that you are showing up day in, day out. You work so hard. You are brilliant at your job. You mentor, you encourage other people. You live, eat and sleep, bus and coach, whatever it may be, but nobody knows about you. Geographically, we've got a wide spread on this call. You may work for a business that is widespread across the country. So make people, whoops, just lost my AirPod, 1 second. People may know about you in your geographical region, but do people know you further afield? So really think about this. 10% of performance, absolutely, that has to be at the best, but people also know what it's like to be in your world, and therefore they have to see you somewhere to understand that. Okay, and if anybody thinks it's not fair, just an aside, Harvey Coleman's first rule is nobody said it would be fair. It's just how we are as individuals. We need to see people, as we've already said, to understand what their brand is. Okay. So another thing, I asked you about those 3 key words. So what do you think your personal brand is? And I asked you to share 3 key words or think of 3 key words. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Those 3 words are absolutely irrelevant. I just wanted you to reflect on what you wanted your personal brand to be, because actually the personal brand that matters isn't the one that's in your head. It's the one that's out there already. So if there are people on this call that know you, what would they say about you? If you're a member of a team, what would your colleagues say about you when, if you weren't on this call and I snuck into the office, how would they describe you? That's what matters. This is all about perception. So you need to know what people say about you, and that's about getting feedback. So if you don't know what your personal brand is, because it's out there already, you need to find out. So my suggestion is you ask people what 3 words come to mind when you hear my name. And if you don't like those 3 words, then you realize that you've got some work to do. There may be a gap between what's going on in your head and how people are actually perceiving you. So what 3 words would they come up with? And then ask them 3 questions. Number 1, what am I really good at? So what are my strengths? So what one thing should I continue doing that will help my impact and my personal brand? And then secondly, what one thing do I need to stop doing to improve my personal brand and impact? Now, you're going to get some tough responses here if people are honest, but you've asked for them. And the third question is, what one thing do I need to start doing to improve my brand and impact? Now, for me, this is the gold dust. Yes, it's tough sometimes to take this feedback, but you don't know what you don't know. I've worked with many clients over the years that had no idea that their team would wait till 11 o'clock before they'd had their coffee and had the morning meeting before they engaged with them, because they were terrified of what might meet them when they went in. I've also had clients that thought they were the life and soul of the party, thought they were absolutely hilarious. Everybody thought they were a bit of a muppet. You know, I've also had people who have been incredibly shy and introverted. And actually, when I've asked their team, they've felt that they're disinterested. So it's incredibly important to get this feedback and find out how people truly experience you. And you can have some fun with the 3 words, because those 3 words that you've written down, you can play personal brand bingo, because you can see how many of those words are fed back to you. The more that there are, the more that you are communicating your brand with impact. Okay. So how do we go about this? How do we ensure that we have a powerful personal brand that people know and love? So it's three things. You need to have clarity. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. You need to communicate, and you need to capitalize on your brand once you have clarity on what it is. So clarity, communicate, capitalize. Those are the three key things we need to be taking from today if you take nothing else away. So clarity. Clarity is about your goals. So why are you going to work on your personal brand and your impact? Now, you might be somebody who is a leader. So you want to develop your leadership brand. You may have career progression in mind. You may be passionate about diversity and inclusion and want to be a visible woman in this field. You may be somebody who is impacting policy. You may be impacting budgets and funding. What are your goals? Are these personal to you? Are they related to your job role? But have absolute clarity on what they are. And once you have that, we need to start to reverse engineer back. And we say, well, who can help me get there? So the second piece of clarity is clarity on your audience. So who can help you achieve those goals? Because what I do find sometimes is people say, Deborah, I haven't got time to do this. This is part of my, this is in addition to my day job. And I would encourage you to think about what do you do on a day-to-day basis that if you were a little more intentional would have more impact and communicate your personal brand more widely. And by knowing who your audience are, you can be absolutely targeted with your efforts rather than a scattergun approach. So really think about, and I would encourage you now to think about 3 people that could progress your career, whatever those goals are. Write down, not in the chat because this is personal to you, but 3 people who can make an impact on your career. And by the end of the month, end of March, get in touch with them. Reach out to them. It's not all about social media and LinkedIn. Maybe a quick phone call, a coffee, whatever it may be, but have in mind who those people are and keep growing that audience. Think about your internal audience. Think about your external audience. Who can make a difference for you? And then we need clarity on our message. So this is our personal brand message. So when there is that vacuum, when somebody's talking about you, what are they going to be saying? And you need to make sure, and this sounds obvious, but it doesn't always happen. You need to make sure that what they're saying is what you want them to say. You need to be articulating your strengths so that they're sharing the strengths that you want them to share, because you want to be known as a visible expert, an expert in your field, so that when they want what it is that you offer, so whether that's internally or externally, you are the front of mind person when that person is out in the marketplace. So let me give you an example of this. A few years ago, I had a young woman approach me and said, Deborah, could you help me? Could you coach me? I am a lawyer and I have been overlooked for promotion 3 times. She said, the first time I thought I was unlucky. The second time I thought I was unlucky. The third time I thought, I perhaps need to do a little bit of work here. And I said, well, how did you find me? And she said, well, I'll be honest, I actually went to a different coach first. I went to a lady called Tilla. And Tilla said to her, yes, I can help you, but what is it that you need? And she said about stepping up and having more impact. And she said, I can help you, but she said, the person who can really help you on this is her niche, is Deborah. And that's what you need, so that as and when those people that are a perfect fit for you, whether that's in a team or for funding or as an advocate, whatever that may be, those people know exactly what it is that you stand for. And this is another 3 components. This isn't just what you do, and this is what we share, isn't it? We go to networking meetings and people say, oh, what do you do? We need to look broader than this. We need to know who we are, who you are, and how you do it. Because actually it's about connection. It's about people that connect with you, that you build trust, you build relationships. Now, Lydia, that's on the call today, Lydia and I met 15 years ago, and Lydia and I connected on that first meeting. I can see her now at the front presenting, and I went over and spoke and we connected. And since then, we have worked together in many different guises. When Lydia's been in different roles, I've provided different services for her colleagues, teams for her. And that is all down to the relationship. Now, if that was just on the what you do, that relationship wouldn't be there. It's when you connect on your values, what matters to you, that's the who you are, and the behaviors, how you do it. Are you enthusiastic? Are you a team player? Are you strategic and big picture? Or are you the person that we need to be down in the details? What is it that you bring to the table? And then the really challenging thing, that's hard enough. That can take, a couple of hours work, maybe longer, to really clarify this. And I would encourage you to do this after today. But once you've got that, and this is the point that many of the senior leaders that I work with get to, they have absolute clarity on what their values are, what they stand for, but they forget to communicate it. So it's in their heads, but we all assume that everybody is a mind reader, and we can't articulate what our brand is in those 3 separate areas. We'll quite happily tell you what we do, but we're not very good at saying what our strengths are, what we bring to the table, who we are, how we do it. And that is a key part of your personal brand, because unless we communicate it, this is the 30% part of Harvey Coleman's pie model, that personal brand. How do people experience you on a day-to-day basis? Now, of course, we communicate in so many different ways, don't we? We communicate through our words, we communicate through our body language, we communicate with our eye contact, with our energy, with our attitude, our smile, all these different ways, as well as, Snapchat, text, WhatsApp, you name it, all those different modes of communication. How we dress, that's one that usually ruffles a few feathers, but how we dress is absolutely going to dictate how people experience you. I know we shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but we do. That's what we are hardwired to do, because when it comes to first impressions, we have a tenth of a second. And in that moment, our visual impact is what people see first, and that is giving clues about us. So we just have to be aware of all these different communication areas. So a little bit of audience participation. So for those particularly who've got your cameras on, I just want you to put the OK sign up in the air for me. Can everybody see the OK sign there? Yeah. And I just want you to place it on your chin for me. Okay. So who's got it on their chin at the moment, and who's got it on their cheek? Yeah. I asked you to put it on your cheek, but many of you have got it on your, sorry, I asked you to put it on your chin. Many of you got it on your cheek. Your body language will always lead people. So if you are closed off, and trying to be welcoming and warm and approachable, people are going to read your body language long before they are going to hear your words. So let's just think about this when we're in meetings. We might be sapped of energy because it's been a long, long day and it's a tough meeting, but our energy and our attitude makes such a difference. And I promise you, it's that energy and attitude and that feeling that you get with somebody that puts your name in the chat box. That's why you remember that first teacher. That's why you remember that boss, because they gave you that time. They heard you. They were present with you. And that is what we have control over, but we forget when we're not necessarily intentional. I worked with one of the schools over in Leeds a few years ago, and there was a professor there who was who'd been there for many, many years, and he was legendary. And I said, what is it about him that you all love? And they said, he always makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. And they used to tell stories of going into his office and they'd say, have you got a minute? And he would say, yes, just give me a second. And he would take his phone off the hook and he would lift his chair from behind the desk and he would bring it round and he would put it at the front of his desk and he would sit down and he would sit facing them eye to eye and he'd say, you have my undivided attention. Tell me what it is. And people remembered him for that, because how often in this busy, busy world are we truly present? It's just a reminder, and have a hook to remind you as you walk in that room, as you put your hand on the handle. Think about, how do I want to be seen in this meeting? How do I want people to remember me? I just want you to think about somebody, write somebody else's name. Let's celebrate some other wonderful people. I want you to write the name of somebody in the chat box that when you've been with them, they make your cheeks ache. They are so wonderful to be around. They always lift your spirits. They are absolute radiators. Let's share some love here. So who are the radiators in your world? Let's pop them in the chat box. They're always high energy. Oh, we all need to see Kaylee's son. Mine's 18. He's not always a radiator, but never mind. Some days. Brilliant. Some great answers here. Okay, so those are the people, and that's part of their personal brand. Okay. Shout out for Leah in marketing there. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. Now then, please don't put this in the chat box. I want you to think of somebody who's an absolute drain. Those people that have always got the biggest workload. They're always had the worst journey to work. They always sort of just pop your balloon, don't they? They always bring you down. Okay, just think about that person and say, please don't share them in the chat box. That's part of their personal brand. Just think about that person. How would they feel if they thought that is how you experience them? Now, I'm absolutely sure if they were on this call, they wouldn't be writing that down as one of their behaviors and one of their, this is who I am. But this is where that disconnect comes in when it comes to articulating and intentionally articulating and communicating who we are and what we do. Okay, so I've talked about having absolute clarity and I've talked about communicating it. So let's just think about how we can proactively get our brand out there, whether it's externally or internally, for your internal stakeholders or for those outside. And this isn't about one big event. This isn't about one big hurrah. This is consistently showing up time after time. It's in those small moments. It's about marginal gains. It's those small interactions that people will remember about you. I was with a client yesterday who said, Deborah, I desperately tried to do all the LinkedIn and I nearly burnt myself out because I was trying to post 3 times a week on top of the day job. And she said, it's just not working for me. It's draining me. And I said, okay, that's fine. Let's look at an alternative if that's draining for you. How about having coffee conversations with somebody? How about writing a post every now and again? How about picking up the phone one afternoon and giving somebody a call that you've not spoken to for a while? How about mentoring somebody? How about a handwritten note to say thank you for what you did for me last week? It meant a lot. How about sharing an article? These are all ways to get your name and your visibility in front of that key audience that we've already identified. And I said to you, how many of you feel a bit icky? And I know a number of you said absolutely. Well, here is something I want to share with you. How about you think about idea promotion over self-promotion? So how about, rather than it being the Deborah show or whatever, your show, think about the ideas that you have to share. Because my purpose is to support as many people on this in this area as I possibly can, because it is so powerful and transformational if you spend the time to work on yourself. So I'm actually doing my audience a disservice if I don't show up and share those ideas. And I think on social media, there is so much of a challenge around the algorithm and the metrics. So how many of you have scrolled through social media, maybe even this morning, and seen a quote or a story or a case study or a photograph that has inspired you? And in that moment, it has changed the direction of your day. Now, somebody may feel like that with one of your posts. And rather than thinking about the metrics of how many likes have I got, I would suggest that you think about the impact that you may have. So if only one person sees your post and it changes their opinion on Bus and Coach, it inspires them to apply for a role. It may be that they have a daughter that is inspired to apply for an apprenticeship, whatever it may be, because we can't be it if we can't see it. That is what we can do. And I see it as a duty as people within the service industry to get our message out there. And this isn't about filters. This isn't about being perfect. I want you to think about connection over perfection, because perfection isn't achievable and often it's not relatable. So I would ask you, I really do ask you to think about who your audience are and what is it that they need to hear from you, and truly connect with them and tell them stories. I've already told you some stories today. So if you're uncomfortable in sharing your successes, tell a story about it. Tell stories about your team, what you've achieved, what you're achieving in Women in Bus. Share on LinkedIn the great work that Women in Bus are doing, Women in Bus and Coach are doing. Share what your team have achieved, what you personally, what you're passionate about, how you go about what you do. These are all stories that we can share without sounding, like the great big I am. Now, I've said to you already that this is about finding your way to be visible. This is mine. I present on a day-to-day basis and I enjoy it, and it's a great way to get my message across. But for some of you, this is the last thing you want to do. But I would say to you, play to your strengths. I have people in my network that can move me to tears with their written word. If that is you, start writing posts, start writing blogs. If you are somebody that enjoys presenting, maybe volunteer, get yourself out there in the community. But if you are somebody who's more introverted, keep it more low profile, but be strategic and think about those people in your audience that you can connect with. I have a client that on a Friday afternoon, he shuts down his laptop or his computer, and at 3 o'clock on a Friday, he looks through his list of people that he hasn't spoken to for a while, or his biggest clients, and he picks up the phone and speaks to them. And he says he is by far the most successful fee earner within his organization because he keeps in contact. And if they were just thinking about maybe putting their budget somewhere else, then all of a sudden he's front of mind again. So that's what we are looking for here. Ways that you can stay front of mind in the front of the people who can impact on your career and your career success. Now, when it comes to posting online, I just want you to think about three things. People say to me, well, I just don't know what to post and I don't want to write about the bagel I had for my breakfast or whatever it may be. Now, I promise you, if you share the latest legislation about bus safety or coaches, the chances are you're not going to get a lot of engagement. Yes, you may want to educate, and there is a there is absolutely a place for that. But to get true engagement, this has to be relatable to your audience. So you take that legislation and you put a story around it. It may be that you share some of who you are and the what you do and the how you do it. Those posts will absolutely get engagement. But I would say to you, always ask yourself three questions. What is my intent here? So do I want to build visibility? Do I want to educate? Do I want to connect with my audience? Do I want to share my own credibility? So it may be that you've been awarded, given an award. So what is the reason behind your post? And then what is the impact that that will have on your audience? So make it relatable to your audience. And then thirdly, I would just run it past the integrity test. In 5 years' time, would you still stand by what you are saying? Will you still be proud of what you are putting out there? Will that still be true to you? So that's just a really quick, what is it? Why am I posting this on social media? Or why am I presenting this? Why am I sharing this? Okay, so I've talked about clarity. I've talked about communicate. I've talked about capitalize on it, be visible. And it's about doing that consistently. That's that other C. But most of all, it's about being yourself. This isn't fake it till you make it. This isn't about being an influencer. This is about showing up as yourself. Always be a first rate version of you rather than a second rate version of somebody else. Now, I'm a huge believer that success leaves clues. So if you know somebody in your network, some of those people that inspired us at the beginning that are brilliant at this, then follow what they do, but make it your own. I look at people like Michelle Obama, who has this incredible impact. She's incredibly credible. She has that influence, but she's also a mother. She's female. She loves her fashion. She connects with the audience. She's vulnerable. She's open. She's my role model when it comes to this. And study those people. What is it that they do? But make it your own. Okay. So my final plea before I open up to questions, and I can see some questions in the chat already, but my final plea, so there is a Chinese proverb which is, when is the best time to plant an oak tree? And the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Your personal brand and your impact, your reputation, your profile is exactly the same, because it won't surprise you. This takes time. This could take 6 months before you start to reap the rewards. But if you planted a seed today, you wouldn't start digging it up to see whether it's germinating. You will wait the 6 months. And that, I promise you, is when you will start to see results. Yes, there are things you can start to do today that will make us a quicker impact, but building power and reputation and profile take time. So I plead you to start to do it today, because if you don't take control of your personal brand, just think about that vacuum. What will people be filling that vacuum with if you're not dictating the message you want people to say about you? Okay, thank you so much. I am just going to, I'll share, please link with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. And if you have any questions now, I will open, I'm going to take my, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see, and we can have a look at the questions in the chat. I don't know if you have any, Kaylee, that you've picked up.
Yeah, I've got a few. So I'll lead out the questions, Deborah. So I think I've captured them all, and I had a few come into my
Brilliant.
email actually as well. So
Super.
so I want to take the ones from the chat first. So as someone with low body confidence, I've always worried about how I look professionally. Hearing now that what I wear matters for my personal brand, how would you advise I increase my confidence?
Okay, so confidence is a huge topic, but your personal brand is, I've said that your visual impact matters, but that is a small part. Your personal brand is how you show up. So it's about believing in yourself. And I know that is very, that's something that feels like a throwaway comment on a call like this, but this is starting to write down all the brilliant things that you are good at. I recommend my clients do this. I ask them to write down 20 things that they are brilliant at. And when you've got to 20, make it 50. Keep adding to that list and really believe in what you are good at. I also have my clients hold a smile file. And that isn't just a file on their laptop or on their computer, it's a physical book. And when somebody gives them a compliment or recommends their work or says well done or sends them a congratulations card, whatever it may be, you write it in the book, because we are negatively biased. So if we look in the mirror and don't feel great, and we have a poor body image and we don't feel great, then we can go into a negative spiral. So what we need to do is stop that negative spiral in that moment by looking at some evidence in black and white that says you are really good at your job, people appreciate you, this is what I can do. And by having it written down, that shifts us from the emotional part of our brain into the logical part of our brain. So that's one thing you can do. But enjoy getting dressed, I would say, and enjoy finding, this isn't about spending lots of money and looking in a certain way. This is about feeling good yourself. So find what works for you and enjoy getting dressed, and think about your energy, think about your attitude, think about how you smile. And I promise you, if you walk in a room with a smile and great eye contact, nobody's going to notice what you are wearing.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, on to the next one. How do you maintain an authentic personal brand when your role requires you to represent an organisation rather than yourself?
Okay, so great question. So you are representing an organisation, and there will be certain values in that organisation that there is an expectation for you to uphold and communicate. And therefore you need to work within those boundaries. But this is about integrity as well. Now, I am in no way suggesting that if somebody is unhappy in their role, they should be, leaving tomorrow. But what I would say is that often if you have been unhappy in a previous organization, it may be that your own values don't align with those of the business that you are working with. But on the day-to-day basis, you can still show up as you. So you may have the bigger values of the business that communicate on a more formal basis, but how about how you interact with people? How about how, as I've said, the energy you bring to every situation? How about your kindness? How about you support people? How about the time that you give people? These are all ways in the small moments of how we communicate our brand. And in those moments, you're not thinking, I'm going to communicate the business brand here. It's the business brand that you communicate in the more formal moments, but in those individual moments, how do you show up? And that is unique to you.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, so we've got a tricky one come in. I'm sure
Okay.
you'll be more than ready for it. How
I'll
do
have a
you
drink of
build
water in preparation.
Yeah, that's it, hydrate. How do you build a personal brand or become a voice within your industry whilst also tackling imposter syndrome? You may think, for example, that what you're about to say is not insightful or interesting.
Okay. So Lydia will be smiling because she's on the call, and if anybody else is on the call that knows me, this is a little bit of a bugbear of mine. So if you are somebody who says, I suffer from imposter syndrome, I want you to stop and leave that on this call today. Now, what I will say is you are allowed to have imposter tendencies because you are a minority in the room. There will be times when absolutely you feel like an imposter, but the problem with imposter syndrome is it becomes something we own and we take it on as part of our identity, and then we show up in that way. So it's about being curious and thinking, why do I feel like an imposter in this moment? And it might be that it is a lack of knowledge. It might be it is a lack of preparation. It might be because you are a minority in the room. But in that moment, it's about looking again, going back to the confidence piece about what we do bring. And if there is a gap, and sometimes it is that there is a gap there and we can fill that gap with more experience, more knowledge. But often it's about recognizing what our strengths are. I often have younger clients or people say to me, but I'm the youngest person in the room. I might be the only female. I might be the person of colour. You bring a different lens that is just as valuable in that room. We cannot work in an echo chamber, and we need that diversity. So, yes. I could do a full workshop on that one, but those are my top tips on that. Think about imposter tendencies rather than owning it as part of your identity.
Thank you, Deborah. We may need to invite you back to do a piece specifically on imposter tendencies for women in Bus and Coach. Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to do one or two more, just depending on how long the answers are. So as I said, a few came through on email. So this one came through on email. If colleagues already have a fixed perception of you, what are the effective ways to evolve or reposition your personal brand?
That's a really great question. I would say this is one of the biggest challenges in personal branding. So often I will work with somebody I might be coaching somebody within an organization, and they've worked within that organization for maybe 5 years, and people have got used to that person and their behaviors and the way they show up. And then I start working with that person and they're working so hard to improve their behaviors, grow in their behaviors, and actually nobody sees those results. And the challenge that we have here, this comes back to the psychology behind first impressions. And what we do is we see people and we experience people, and then we lodge that in the hippocampus part of our brain, so that as and when we see that person again, automatically we think, okay, what do I think when I see Kaylee? And we go rooting around in the back of our brain, and that message comes back again. And sorry, Kaylee, I'm using you as an example, but Kaylee's working hard to grow and have more impact or whatever it may be, but people are still reverting back to that original idea of you. So how do we go about it? This is the piece that I mentioned before about articulating what it is that you stand for. So I would say to people, you won't have that piece of work by Wednesday. You'll have it by Friday, because I am working on my attention to detail, and I want to make sure it is absolutely what you are expecting from me. Or it might be that somebody says, who will volunteer? I'll volunteer. I'm not very confident about it, but I'm determined to grow in this area. So I will go and speak to that group of people. It's about voicing and articulating the actions and behaviours that you are working on. And I'm sure on this call you will know what it is, but there is a concept in Japan that was introduced to the transport system, and the whole point is that you call out what you are doing, and by calling it out, people, I don't know if anybody can help me out here on what this is. That it is some management program, but you call out exactly what your behaviors are, because people aren't mind readers, so we need to help them. So think about what your message is. I have clients who have post-its on the side of their computer with their values, with their personal brand message, and they weave that into their stories and their messages in every single interaction.
Thank you, Deborah. So just in the spirit of making sure everybody can get back to whatever they've got on this afternoon, I just wanted to close out with a huge thank you, firstly to yourself, Deborah, for hosting what has been, I think, definitely for myself, the most beneficial use of my lunch break in a long time. And I hope that's the case for many people on the call. I'm sure it is. So as we touched on at the start of this call, we are celebrating International Women's Day, and that theme of give to gain, I'm just hoping that you can take that away with you, as long as as well as all the great work that Deborah's set us on a pathway with. So please think about how you can pass on some of your learns from today to other women in your sphere and enable them to grow with you too. So my last thank you, and a really important one, is to all of you for being here with us, and please keep an eye on the Women in Bus and Coach newsletter for more sessions such as this one. Thanks to everybody that helped get us organised as well. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye everybody.